Hey guys, it's Courtney from the Ivy League, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about some of the NCLEX myths that may be true, may be false, but we're going to go through them today. So the first one is that if the test ends on an even question number, like if you end on 68 or 72, you wouldn't end on 68 because 75 is the minimum, but so say 82 or 84 or 264, then you fail. That's not true. The test is actually a computer adaptive test, so it looks at how you pass, like how if you're answering passing level questions, and let me explain this a little bit more. So the test itself has different gradings of questions. There's below passing level, and then there's varying levels within the passing level. It's possible to pass with the minimum amount of questions as long as all of the questions that you've answered have been above the passing level line. So the photo that I'm showing you right now is a photo of the computer adaptive testing, and each uptick that you notice is a correct answer and each downtick is an incorrect answer. So you start with the line of minimum competency. Everything above it is passing, everything below it is not passing as far as the level of question goes. So they look at whether or not you can sustain your line of thinking above that line or not. So the first photo here is it's a photo of how you can pass, and you'll notice in this picture that the person starts out at the passing level line, goes up, gets a question wrong, then gets one right again, and then drops down below the line of minimum competence. Then things change, they go back up again, and then they go back down, and then they go back up, and then you'll notice that there's like a sawtooth pattern to that graph. That means that they were only getting every other question right. So once you get above that line and you can stay consistently above that line in that upper area, you only need to get 50% of the questions right, and that it's called a band of confidence. That test is looking for that band of confidence where they can safely say that you know what you're talking about. So it's possible to get that band in 75 questions. That's how people pass in 75 questions. It's also possible to get below that band in 75 questions, and at that point the computer is fairly certain that you need to test again. And I'll show a graph of that right now. And you'll see in this graph that person starts out, again, this is the failure in 75 questions. They start out at the line of competence, and then they drop down fairly quickly. Then they come back up a little bit, and then they drop down, but they stay the entire time below that line. 75 questions, they're below that line the entire time. They never ever came back up above that line. So the computer is looking for that, not what number question you're on. Another myth is that every 13th person automatically fails. That's not true. You are responsible for answering the questions, not the test. So the only thing that would cause you to fail is answering the questions incorrectly. Along that same line, another one that I heard was every 13th person gets all 265 questions. So if you've heard anything about the NCLEX, you know you can get from 75 to 265 questions, and 15 of those are trial questions they're testing out to see if they're going to add them into next year's test. But again, the you know, what number your place, I guess your place in what person you are coming through the door has nothing to do with how many questions you get or you failing. The computer will only give you as many questions as it needs to figure out if you know what you're doing or not. So another one is that this is a standardized test. That's not true. It's not the same for everybody. Not everybody gets the same questions. Not everyone gets the same amount of questions. It's not standardized. It's not the same across the board. It's a computer adaptive test, so it can give you as many as it needs to or as little as it needs to. Another myth, just starting this year, is that there are no brand name drugs. That is true. Just this year, there are no brand names for the drugs. They're all generic. So if you're studying for your NCLEX, make sure you study your generic names. Make sure you learn your endings. There's some great resources on Pinterest is where I found some of mine that give you some of the endings, and if you know classes and stuff like that in your endings, you should have a decent I guess pharmaceutical grasp of things. And again, along that same line is that the test is very heavy on pharmacology. Again, everyone's test is different. I can't get into specifics of what I have because when you test, you sign a confidentiality agreement not to give away test questions. I can say I did not have very many pharmacology questions at all, like at all. So another one that made me stop for a second is that this myth says that you can tell if you passed or failed by the color of the screen when it shuts off. That's not true. Everyone's screen turns blue. Everyone. Another myth is that there are pilot questions included in the test. I just mentioned that a little bit ago. That is true. There are at least 15 pilot questions for each person's test. So really when they grade it, those questions have no bearing on whether or not you're right or wrong. Those don't get factored into your test. They're just, again, for the company to trial. Another one would be that there are alternative format question types like hotspots, math, ranking which patients to see first. That is true. Some people have that. Again, without giving too much away, I didn't have any of those. But I know people that did. If you've taken the Kaplan class, you know hotspots are where you can pick different parts of the body, or like a really popular one that Kaplan loved to do would be to say that the baby is in a certain, like a pregnant woman, there's a baby in a certain position, and where would you find the fetal heart tones? So that was one that Kaplan loved to pick. I didn't have any of those hotspots though. Math questions and rank, again, these all vary on how your test plays out. Some people might get all of these, some people might not get any of these. Okay, here's another one. Weaknesses are recognized, and you get more questions in those areas. The areas that they're speaking of, I think there's 8 of them, like basic care and comfort, pharmacology, and some other things like that. The test does not recognize weaknesses in that extreme. The test does recognize that you are above or below the passing line, but does not recognize specific weaknesses. You should be proficient in all of those areas, but it's not going to say, hey, you're really bad at basic care and comfort, I'm going to give you 30 more care and comfort questions. It doesn't do that. It just bases them on passing or failing level questions. So another myth is that most people fail the first time they take their NCLEX. Not true. 85% of people pass the first time. That's only 15% fail the first time they take it. That's not most. That's like a lot less than most. So I don't know the percentages as far as like prep classes and how that increases your chances of passing the first time. It would be really hard to find that out because I don't know about the transparency from the prep companies and how, you know, if they'd be like completely transparent and say, well, this is, you know, our percentage of people that pass the first time. I would like to think that they would tell the truth, but again, it's a business, so I don't know if that would be the way to figure that out. The Board of Nursing didn't ask me if I took a prep class, so the last myth that I have is that, let's see here, you can miss 50% of the questions as long as you're above the line. So if you remember back to those graphs that I showed you, that is true. If you're above the passing level line and you're well above the passing level line, you can miss 50% of the questions and still pass your NCLEX. So I hope these have been helpful. These are just part of a bigger blog post that I've made on my website about NCLEX myths and truths, and I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below, or you can click right here to take you directly to it. And if you have anything that you've heard, maybe leave it in the comment section down below, and make sure you click like and subscribe. Thanks guys, bye.